would like to come because we were determined that we can only win. There is no other, there's no other choice. I would now like to, is there one here? I would like to now hand the mic over to our esteemed moderator, Paul Michael.
Wow, how do you follow that? Thank you all for coming out. And I get a real great show. Some great things out here talking about the really cool things. Not only city, but the World War II. We're first off by thanking Misha and Women's National Democratic Club for sponsoring the event. Our other sponsors include DC for Democracy, Jews United for Justice, the Great Greater Washington, DC Working Families Party, United Food and Commercial Workers Coalition, SEIUWCJ, the Gertrude Stein Democrats, DC Democratic Women's Club, and the Women's Teachers Union. Give me my hand.
So I can become the next full-time Ward 2 City Council member. I'm currently a 6-term ANC Commissioner, current chairman. I'm the former Ward 2 Community Liaison for the Executive Office of the Mayor. And your vote and support I can build on the affordable housing in the ward, like the project that I worked at the Eden House at 1301 14th Street Northwest, and the N Street Village, which was funded by the low-income housing tax credit through DACD. I'm currently working with New Bethany Baptist Church at 13th, 11th and N to develop 28 senior units at the lot at 11th and N. Small business retention. I was just capable of getting 14th Street designated as a Main Street designation. A lot of my time that I spent working in the mayor's office and as chairman of the ANC has been expediting C of O, certificate of occupancies, and business licensing and inspections at DCRA. Also, I would like to support public safety programs in Ward 2, particularly officers on bicycles, promote the mayor's security camera program, which has been successful in solving crimes in our city. I would like to secure funding to support additional inspectors in the Office of Human Rights. I ask for your support and your vote to have a renewed focus on Ward 2. Thank you.
Hi, thank you so much for coming, and thank you in particular to our hosts. I'm Jordan Grossman. I'm a 5th-generation resident of DC and a lifelong progressive Democrat. My great-great-grandparents immigrated to DC. My great-great-grandpa was a kosher butcher in Georgetown. My great-grandma ran Sherman's Market at 42nd and Benny Road. My grandpa, he ran Sherman's, he ran State Retired Battery and 10th and 8th for decades. My grandma, my mom, my wife, my brothers and I, we were all born right here in Ward 2. I say all that just because, and the neighborhoods that they already love. You know, at the end of the day, the reason I'm up here running to represent Ward 2 on the DC Council is because we need a council member who is truly for you, not for sale. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to DuPont. Tonight, you'll hear from me on my priorities and stances on the issues. First, I want to tell you a little about who I am. Because I think it'll help you understand my perspective and motivations. I'm a father of 2, a Marine Corps Afghan vet, recently a fiance, and technology professional at Microsoft. I live just up the street from here on 18th So I'm doing well now, but I did grow up in different circumstances. I was raised in a working class neighborhood by a single mother who worked 2 or 3 jobs to support me and my 2 brothers. We were, however, fortunate to have a lot of family support. My grandma was around to watch us when my mother was working, evenings or weekends, or during summer break. We all lived with my grandparents for 3 years, so my mom was able to save up to buy our first home. Many others around me didn't have the same support that they could provide. I've lost people to substance abuse, to gun violence, to suicide. I've had people close to me experience homelessness and long-term unemployment. I've grown up with people in and out of the criminal justice system. I deeply understand the challenges that they face trying to improve their lives. As we talk about economic, racial, and criminal justice tonight, I believe I have the best experience and the best perspective to make progress and move the district forward. I believe I can serve as a bridge between communities and people. I know what it's like to struggle. I know what it's like to support a family of 4 on military income. But I also know what it's like to do well. I'm not here for politics as usual. I haven't spent the past 10 or 20 years working or running for office. I felt a call to service, like when I enlisted in the Marines. I'm here because I was frustrated with what I saw and decided to be the change that I want to see. If you elect me as your Ward 2 council member, you'll get someone you can trust is voting in your interests, not my own. I'll be working to address our housing and homelessness crises, fighting for our neighborhood schools, working to improve transportation for everyone, and supporting our most vulnerable residents, as well as our locally owned small businesses. Thank you, and I hope to have you vote.
Good evening, and like the others, thank you all so very much for Is this better? Good evening. Thank you all for being here this evening. I want to again thank the organizers of this event that made this possible. I've organized many of these over the years, and I know how much work goes into it. And it's all real opportunities, I think, to discuss the issues of foremost importance in this board. My name is Patrick Kennedy. I've been an advisory board commissioner in Quad Bottom for the last 7 years. I served 4 years as Mike Governance chair. I think what's clear in this election is that there's an appetite for change, and an appetite for a councilman with integrity who can represent the interests of all of the board's residents, understanding the many different sensibilities that we have in this board. Over the last 7 years as ANC chair, I've focused on coming together with community members to find solutions for issues, bringing people together around tough issues, and forging compromises where necessary. The very first thing I was involved with on the ANC was saving Francis Stevens Education Campus from closure and facilitating a merger with a school without walls. A school that once had 190 people in a building built for 480 today has 540 in the same building for 480. Its test scores are going up year after year. That is the type of high-quality neighborhood school that we can deliver all across this board. I focused on making transportation safer and more efficient. Going back even to college when I worked at Metro one summer, transportation is a passion of mine. We need to make sure that people can get around this board safely, affordably, and efficiently. You should not have fear for your life crossing the street outside. It's important that we actually put teeth into Vision Zero and make sure that people can get around this ward safely and efficiently. I think the third thing, and maybe the most important, is the cost of living that is driving so many people out of this board. I even see it with my own colleagues. I've served on the commission for years. People who are invested in our communities, who want to stay, but cannot afford to do so because there's no affordable housing here. And this is a problem that, again, affects people whether they've lived here for 40 or 50 years, or whether they've lived here for 40 or 50 weeks. Affordable housing is the #1 issue that we can address. I look forward to discussing these issues this evening, but I just want to say in closing, again, we've had 1 council member for 30 years. We've had 2 council members in 45 years. It's time for a change in Ward 2, and I greatly appreciate the opportunity, along with my fellow candidates, to discuss the issues this evening. Thank you.
And I want to thank the organizers, thank some of my constituents who are coming out tonight, and thank my wife, Divya, for all of her support and throughout this campaign. And you know, Divya and I lived for a decade, just 3 blocks from here on 16th Street. We shared a small one-bathroom apartment. We loved it, and it made me. I love the community so much. I ran for ANC commissioner. And, you know, we got a lot of things done. We got Stead Park redone. We on 16th Street buses we got improvements. On 15th Street bike lanes we got them safer. And then we got 4 new affordable childcare centers. That's just the start of it. And I made me want to do more. I started working for DC government for the last 6 years for DC Health Week. You may have seen their bus ads. President Obama's healthcare law here in DC. I worked for 6 years across the city trying to help people get coverage. And I'm very proud of how many people we were able to help. A few years ago, we moved to the lovely new neighborhood of Burleigh, and our Citizens Association president is here. Eric, thank you. It's a beautiful neighborhood. I hope you all come and visit. We bought our first home a year ago. We were blessed by the arrival of our first child. He's a tiny little dude named Om, and I hope you meet him on the campaign trail. He's very cute. You know, but looking at him, made me want to do more for our city, for kids everywhere, and for families everywhere. I ran for ANC again. Some of my constituents are here, Brian and Sarah Wetzel. Their son, Mason, all he wants to do is play ball at the field across the street from his school, the public field. You may have heard about it, Jella Field. Councilmember Jack Evans wants to give all the prime hours of that field away to one school for 10 years. And we think that that's wrong. We are fighting back. We are having a hearing with the DC Council on October 7th. I hope you'll be there. This is what I've been doing for my constituents for a decade. I've been fighting for them every step of the way. My constituents on both sides of Ward 2 have trusted me and asked me to run for DC Council. I want to represent the entire ward, and that's what I'll do. I will fight for you every day if you give me a chance. Thank you.
Kill myself here, getting down. So thank you everyone so much for coming this evening. I feel especially lucky to be here with all these handsome gentlemen. My name is Yilin Zhang at Starbucks. I go by Ellen. Yilin Zhang. I'm a first-generation Chinese American. My name is Chinese. And I first came to Washington, D.C. almost a decade ago. I realized I'm a new candidate on the block, but I'm not new to Washington, D.C. I was raised in Michigan, and my parents immigrated here from China. I came with my mother in 1990. And since I've been in Washington, D.C., I've lived in 3 different neighborhoods in Ward 2, and I absolutely love being in Washington, D.C., and I think at this point I'm very proud to be a Washingtonian. And I've spent the last 10 years, and I realize I sort of have a case of Benjamin Button here. You may not think it. I've worked for 10 years in healthcare as a healthcare professional. I worked in operations, business development, and I'm a published researcher. And so when I think about my life in Washington, D.C., I think about the family that I'll have here in the years to come, and I think about how Ward 2 has changed. We have many different cultures here, many different communities, one of which is a professional community who has come here and they want to settle down. We have a community here who has been here for decades and has made Washington, D.C. the magnet place it is today, why we are proud to live here. And we have a community who makes the minimum wage, and they can't afford to live here, although they are critical to our functioning as a city and soon to be state. And we have a community here who has unfortunately fallen through the cracks. They are homeless, they live on the streets, and some of them suffer from mental health, behavioral health issues. Some of them have drug addiction issues, and we need to make sure that they know how to access the resources in a reasonable and efficient manner. So I'm here today because there are so many communities here in Ward 2 in Washington, D.C., and I am a connector. My vision here is for all of us to truly come together, to listen to one another, and to come up with a plan that is truly representative, inclusive, and safe for every single person. So as your councilwoman, I'm interested in making sure that we have access to affordable and accessible healthcare, quality education, and as Patrick said, making sure that our communities are safe. Thank you very much.
inequality among cities in the United States. I think most would say it's fair to say that we have a progressive tax structure. How do you ensure that DC's richest residents and most successful businesses pay their fair share and that our taxes is made more progressive?
I think it's a great question. I think we're actually at an inflection point in our city right now. We're getting close to a point where only people who are super wealthy are going to be able to stay here and live. But when I talk to people in Ward 2, what I hear from them is that we don't want to keep going down that path. We want a city that's more progressive and more equitable. And so I think in answer to your question, I think what we need to do is invest in some of these structural reforms that will make it easier for people to stay in the city. Folks who are struggling, folks who aren't, some of our lower income folks. So, number one, I think we need to invest more in our housing production trust funds and our local rent supplement program. And I think that especially has to help out folks who are extremely low income. Here in DC, we have a shortage of 30,000 units for people who are low income. Number two, we need to invest in the Birth to Three for All DC Act, which is, to me, a super high priority. And budgets are about priorities. I think we should invest in Birth to Three and more affordable housing. Thank you.
I think it's important, one, to ensure that people are provided the opportunities to do well. As Jordan mentions, the Birth to Three Act, I think, is one of those big opportunities that we have to help, bridge that gap between people who have family like I did that had support and those who don't. That's getting kids into school as much as we can. That's, preschool programs, that's after school programs. That's ensuring children are happy, healthy, and not hungry. Beyond that, the housing crisis is a big impactor on the people who are allowed or who are able to remain here in DC. We need more housing, and we need a lot of that new housing to be affordable housing. If we want to be more than simply a city of the wealthy and public housing residents, we have to do that.
I appreciate the question.
Okay. How do you ensure that DC's richest residents and most successful businesses pay their fair share? And how do you ensure that we have a progressive tax structure in DC?
So I appreciate the question. I think that there has already been work done in this thing. The Tax Revision Commission a few years ago, for instance, took the income tax brackets. The district used to have fewer brackets. They built it out to have more. So our income tax structure at the state level taxes is actually one of the most progressive in the country relative to other states. I think that there's more work that we can do along this vein. I think it comes back to what we're spending our tax revenues on. The Housing Production Trust Fund was funded to the tune of $120 million this past year. The auditor came out with a report that said that projects in the territories were not getting funded to nearly the degree that they should. Birth to Three is another important initiative, $200 million. We need to look at where we're spending our money now and prioritize investments that are going to be important in the future, and also make sure that we don't fall into the trap of unintended consequences by looking at business taxes that are going to exacerbate our retail vacancy rates, especially that we see in Georgetown and downtown. Those are all jobs, and we need people to have jobs, especially when a recession is imminent.
So, let me tell you what I've seen in this city. Working for DC HealthLink for the last 6 years, I have seen the disparities in our city up close. Working across the city, across the river, in the poorest neighborhoods, fighting for the most vulnerable people in our city. Did you know that a black man in this city dies on average 15 years earlier than a white man? Black women in the city die on average 9 years earlier than a white man. The infant mortality rate is 5 times that for black babies versus white babies. In our city, our neighbors, just 2-3 miles away from us. Unconscionable. We must do more to help the people at the bottom in our city. So I will definitely work on many of these issues to make it fairer, we need to, at the same time, we definitely need to give small business a grace with DC Health Link. I work with small businesses that helps them get coverage as well. I know the problems facing small business as well as the vulnerable communities in our city. And I will fight for all of them. We can do this together. Thank you.
I think all the candidates have brought up really great points. This is not just an issue of taxing the highest and the wealthiest. This is making sure that the money, as Patrick said, goes to the right uses. We need to make sure that people are making a living wage, not just the minimum wage. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And we need to make sure that 39%, let me tell you, I know this, 39% of our homeless population is homeless because they've lost a job. Not because they didn't want to work, they want to live with dignity. So we need to make sure that we hold our businesses accountable so that if you're going to fire someone, you give them time notice. For example, with a single mother with children, how is she going to pay for childcare if she loses her job? How long is she going to have to find her next job? So we need to make sure that we use the money in the right way, treat our people with respect, and make sure that they have enough to live on and live with dignity. I think as a society that it's our responsibility to make sure that all of DC has a fair and equitable opportunity to live here.
Okay, thank you. Very good answers to the question. I agree that we may have to revisit with the tax commission and reevaluate the commercial property taxes, and along with not only commercial property taxes, but residential property taxes. And I believe that giving seniors a reduction in their tax deduction on the DC tax form would, so they can save more of their pension instead of just giving it to DC residents that are retired from the federal government, the district government. It should be all retirees receiving a pension in the district, because I think all folks aging in place have the largest challenge on fixed income living in the city. So I would like to take a look at the income tax structure and along with reevaluating the commercial property tax. Because I think, like was mentioned, all these vacancy in commercial retail spaces, they remain empty and they're not forced through the tax code to
So, streets have finite space. But adding a bus or bike lane sometimes requires taking away parking or driving lane. If presented with the opportunity to build a dedicated bus or bike lane in Ward 2, that would ultimately affect if parking or driving lane were removed, what would you do and how would you respond?
I'd absolutely be in support. When we think about our priorities on the street, one, we need to focus on moving people as opposed to doing a specific modality. When we think about dedicated bus lanes versus protected bike lanes versus parking, where possible, we certainly should see compromises to preserve as much parking as possible. However, when people's lives are on the line, that's not a time to compromise. Dedicated bus lanes so more people can rely on buses, so they don't have to rely on cars. Protected bike lanes, so we're not dying. My fiance's been north my cars a couple times. I've nearly been sideswept a couple times. And I mean, I'm on an e-bike going, at a pretty decent speed now, so I don't like pedal that much. It's imperative that we accommodate a complete street vision for everybody's safety. Thank you.
I think that it's important that we'll have protected bike lanes and dedicated bus lanes. We have a vision for doing this. It's called Move DC. It was created 5 years ago. There has been halting progress on implementing it. And so we've taken it upon ourselves at the neighborhood level. I work with my ANC colleagues at DuPont Circle to do what we can to advance these initiatives. There's a great example of one we just worked on that DDOT came out with a preferred alternative, where DDOT was originally setting a protected bike lane on 21st or 22nd Street. I said that this is going to encounter a substantial amount of residential opposition precisely because of the trade-offs he alluded to. But 20th Street, one street over, has an additional lane to work with, no residential parking, and provides substantially the same connectivity. What had DDOT add 20th Street to the study, the ANCs came to a consensus on pushing that corridor forward. It is possible to bring people to the table, to appreciate people's different sensibilities around parking and safety, and still make progress where it's needed to move people.
Patrick mentioned that the Department of Transportation has a Move DC plan. Well, my plan is Move DDOT. DDOT is not. I have been pushing DDOT and Metro for years. When I first got elected, my wife and I looked out our window on 16th Street. We saw people waiting and waiting for buses. Bunches of people, dozens of people in the cold. I went out and asked them. They said the buses were full. They were off schedule. And people told me, Kishan, you're just an ANC. You can't get anything done on this. I didn't listen. We put up signs at every bus stop from downtown DC to Silver Spring, Maryland. We got people to come together. We pushed and pushed. I testified over a dozen times, and we got more buses, longer buses, and finally, a dedicated bus lane on 16th Street. 8 years later, it's coming in a few months. You just watch how much we're going to improve 16th Street traffic, and I'm very proud of it. Thank you.
I'm in support of policies that make our community safer, and if that means creating more bike lanes, which we do need more bike lanes, because they have an equal right to the road as our drivers as anyone else, then we need more bike lanes. Now, our vision for our traffic enforcement, our vision for our traffic flow needs to be aligned. And I think there's a much needed conversation between our drivers, our pedestrians, our bicyclists, our scooters. We need to have a candid conversation of what our vision for the road is like. And so a few weeks ago, I don't know if anyone was walking around in DuPont Circle, there were all of these police officers, and they said, ma'am, please don't cross the street. I was one of those offenders. I was going to cross the street when there was a red light. And I said, wow, is this a new thing that we're coming up with? Are we going to have actual enforcers here telling people not to cross the road? So we all need to respect the road. We need to respect the bikers who are unfortunately biking in some areas where there's no lanes. So we need to make sure that everyone has an equal share to the road. Thank you.
Yes, so as we utilize the public space, we all have to be generous and considerate. So there's a lot of these streets, right? I mean, half the population in Ward 2 walk to work, right? So there's a lot of folks walking on the public space and the sidewalks. So our infrastructure isn't prepared or equipped to provide a lot of the mass transportation that we need in the ward. We need to make streets wide. We need to make bike lanes, put ballards up and make them safe. We need halt signals, and we need zebra crosswalks. So there's a lot of more things that we can do with Vision Zero. But I think it's how do we make this all work for everyone is our challenge. And I'm willing to work with, folks that have a lot of expertise in transportation policy to make sure that that happens. Thank you.
So I think if there ever was a ward that needs a council member that will prioritize walking and biking and taking public transit, it should be Ward 2, right? We have the downtown core of the city. And we have so many of our bus and rail lanes come through our ward. So the short answer to the question is yes. But I think the other thing I just want to make sure that we recognize is that this type of transportation policy is an equity issue too in our city, right? So if you're in a neighborhood and the bus only comes once every half an hour, and then half the time it doesn't come at all, that's going to affect you if you're going to be able to keep your job or if you're going to be able to get to school on time. All right, so I'm a huge fan of bus lanes. I think they're one of the best things we can do to make a big impact, and they're not that expensive. I think we need more protected bike lanes. When I bike on unprotected lanes on R and Huge Street, I can tell you how many times cars veer into the lane. And the last thing I want to emphasize too, as part of this conversation making our streets safer, is we need to make it safer for our pedestrians. I have a friend in Ward 2 who was hit by a truck. She almost died. She's thankfully doing great now. It's a scary reminder. We need to make our streets safer for everyone. Thank you.
The next question will be on housing, and Patrick Kennedy will go first. Mayor Bowser is committed to doing 36,000 units of new housing in Washington, D.C. by 2025. That breaks out to about 4,500 homes per ward. How are we going to put 4,500 new homes in Ward 2?
Thank you, I appreciate the question. And I want to start off by saying I agree with the mayor's goal. I think the mayor actually might be undershooting the number of housing units we're going to need to produce with the population explosion that we've seen in this city. But I'm also a believer in community engagement and community planning. I think the small area plan concept that the Office of Planning has traditionally implemented as part of the comprehensive plan is an opportunity for us to take this engagement to the local level. Because density, we're a very dense port, but density looks different in downtown or Penn Quarter versus what it looks like in Georgetown or the DuPont Circle Historic District. You can have very dense neighborhoods that don't look like Manhattan. But there needs to be an affirmative emphasis on getting to the overall number that we need to get to, and then we need to work back from that, engage at the community level, construct a plan for development that takes into account community interests, and take the community's consideration into perspective so that development can take place in a by-right, transparent, consistent manner that people know exactly what to predict over the lifespan of the plan.
Well, this is a huge problem for 1 minute. Let me tell you what I've seen. I serve on DC's Commission on Asian Pacific Islander Affairs. I've worked with low-income immigrant tenants who are being pushed out of their homes in Chinatown, in their apartments. I've seen the rat-infested apartments they have. I've seen that they didn't have hot water in the winters. We need to protect the people who want to stay in our ward and in our city. We should build more housing. We should build housing on top of retail. We should allow people to build smaller units of housing on their land. And these are things I've already been doing, and these are things I want to do as your council member. We need to protect. You saw the Washington Post story this week, people being displaced in Logan Circle. The diversity of our city is our strength, and we're losing it with this unaffordability. I want to preserve that diversity in our city, and that's why I will make this a top priority.
I think that we often think about politics. We always see, us versus them, this side versus that side. But politics is really about compromise. So I was speaking to a lovely lady today, which many of you know, we have the Masonic Temple of the Scottish Rites. There's this big controversy going on right now. But I do believe that there is a middle ground. So if we cannot build in a certain place, let's go find somewhere else where it fits the community, and everyone has had a transparent conversation, has an opportunity to say something before it's too late. Not just let me let you talk to make you feel good, but I'm not going to take your thoughts into consideration. But when we're building affordable housing, we need to look at the AMI. A lot of this is 80% of the AMI. We need to look at things that are below 30% to make it truly affordable. And we also need to have the right social resources around the community. We need to have job resources. We need to have affordable childcare for all the parents, particularly the single mothers. And we need to make it truly affordable as a community. It's not just about affordable housing. Thank you.
So I will secure funding from the Housing Production Trust Fund and give single-family homeowners grants so that if they have a basement that they haven't finished, that they could renovate their basement as an accessory dwelling. If you have a garage that you want to turn into an apartment, or if you have a carriage house that you would like to renovate, I would like to offer property owners grants. And as everybody said, the density in the ward. So how are we going to do that, right? Ward 2 is recognized by its historic character in each neighborhood. We have a lot of historic districts. So offering grant funds through the Housing Production Trust Fund is one way. We have a lot of churches in the neighborhood that are struggling financially, and they own a lot of land, particularly in NC2F. Like I mentioned, I'm working with New Bethany Baptist Church, who owns a lot at 11th and N, and I have been in negotiations with them. DHCD.
So I think it's no secret that we're in a housing crisis here in Ward 2, and it's affecting nearly everyone. So whether you're trying to get your first apartment to rent, whether you're a family that needs more space because you have a baby on the way, whether you're a long-term resident who feels like you can't live where you lived for decades because the cost is too high, or whether you're experiencing homelessness. So I think we need to take there's no silver bullet, but there's a lot of things we can do to address this like the crisis it is. So number one, as I mentioned before, the Cultural Trust Fund and the local rent supplement program, and I think those are key, important tools we have. But number two, I think we need to recognize that preserving existing affordable housing is sometimes one of our best ways, and sometimes our quickest and cheapest way to do things. So that means we need to preserve our public housing stock in DC, which is in a shameful condition. We have kids and seniors getting sick. We also need to make sure we're enforcing tenant protections so people aren't getting unjustly evicted. The last thing I'll say is on the comprehensive plan, which is what guides development in the city. Let's make affordable housing the top priority, so we know we're guiding our affordable housing for years and decades to come, and we can have people stay here in the communities that they love. Thank you.
First, I do think the mayor's goal is a good starting point, but we are in a crisis, and we do have to aspire to do more. Good news, we have this conversation, my goals for Ward 3. We need to ban single-family only designations in the district. We need a lot more housing. We need a lot of that to be affordable housing. We need middle-income housing as well. First responders, public servants, teachers should be able to afford to live in our communities and the communities that they serve. We do need some more market rate housing as well. I do market rate housing. I've done the housing search, trying to find a place that accommodates a family of four, if you will. Even when you have the money, there's just not a whole lot of inventory. We do have to balance that with some other interests, but affordable housing needs to be one of our top priorities here in the district.
Our next item will be on criminal justice. And Kitchen Food, you'll go first. So, campaigns to decriminalize transit fare evasion and pass the DARE Act represented a broad appetite for community-led approaches to public safety and violence prevention. What we need to move DC away from mass incarceration-based approach to community safety?
Thank you for the very important question. Working with DC Housing for the past 6 years, we've worked with returning citizens, inmates who would serve their time and then were returning to society. We wanted to support them as they re-entered society, make sure that we gave them services so that they could become active members of our society, covered with health insurance, so that their health needs would not go unmet. And yes, we need to do more on criminal justice reform. I agree with our Attorney General, Carl Racine, who was supporting the Second Book Act to give people who were jailed when they were young in the days of overzealous sentencing in our city, give them a second book, not a get out of jail free card, but a chance to have someone review them because they were young at the time and they do deserve that second chance. I agree with him, and I will push for that if I'm on the council.
So please correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe in the United States we have the highest incarceration rates across the globe, and in DC we have the highest incarceration rates compared to any other state. Thank you very much. So when you look at those rates, the highest rates actually come from robberies, armed robberies. So we need to understand, what is the social issue here at stake? Why are people committing these crimes? And unfortunately, there are a lot of racial undertones related to our incarcerations. People who don't have the privilege to live in a wonderful, enriched community. They unfortunately don't have the privilege of going to school, don't have the privilege of finding a living wage paid job. So So unfortunately, they are in that situation. And so we need, as a society, to truly do better in allowing people to find the jobs, to be educated, and to be living in truly safe and enriched communities. So there are many issues here related to incarceration. I think this is a very complicated issue. We need to look at all of the issues, social issues that are related to incarceration, and we need our own prison system.
Great, so I support the DEAR Act, and I think we need to take a public health approach to fighting crime. If you look at a lot of the severe crimes that were committed, like Miss Martinez, who was murdered in my single-member district, the gentleman has, schizophrenia, had substance abuse issues. So we need to take a public health approach to dealing with crime in our city, and our city has failed us doing that. You take Mr. Hillard that was arrested over, 30, 35 times for assaulting women, and he was back out the next day. So a lot of this is like civil liberties, that there's a lot of individuals on our street that don't have any next of kin or no family, and the whole process to admit people into our public health system is complicated. But I think we need to take a comprehensive public health approach to dealing with crime. And we have the Office of Neighborhood and Safety Engagement offices east of the river. We should have them in every ward.
So I'm a strong supporter of criminal justice reform efforts because I think everyone deserves to be safe in their community, and everyone deserves to be treated equally in their community. So I agree with John. I think we need to take a public health approach. I think we should expand Attorney General Racines' Secure the Streets program, which does treat violence as a public health issue. They hire folks who are called violence interrupters with deep roots in their neighborhoods, and they try to intervene before disputes turn into violence. I think it's a great approach. Number two, I think we need to focus on implementing the DEAR Act effectively, especially the requirements around data and transparency for police stops and uses of force. We finally seen some of that data, and there's some really troubling racial disparities. I think we need to do a lot better, and we should do a lot better. I think also in the DEAR Act, we need to focus on community policing, which I think we need to push a lot more strongly. That's when we have officers getting out of their cars, they're engaging the community and building trust. And it's better for the community, it's better for law enforcement. The last thing I'll say is I also support the Second Chance Act, and because I think folks deserve a second chance after they serve 15 years when they've been convicted as not first. Thank you.
So this is one of those issues that's very personal to me and who I talk way longer than a minute. So trying to be very brief. First, I'm definitely here for the DEAR Act. I'm here for oversight and enforcement to make sure it happens the way it's supposed to be. I'm here for the second look at it. We definitely need to have a public health approach to violence and crime in our community. This is something that people need to have hope. People need to have options. People need to feel loved. As corny as that sounds, personal experience, that helps people do better. We need to have a much more rehabilitative approach to how we address crime and punishment. There's a lot of sentencing reform, there's a lot of substance abuse reform, there's a lot that needs to happen. And as we look to address this here in DC, I think a council member who feels it very personally is important as we address it in all of these kinds of issues.
My fellow candidates have hit on a lot of key points in here, but I want to hone in on one thing in particular, and I think Elin really touched on this when she talked about taking control of our prison system, because I think a primary issue in criminal justice is recidivism. And the reason that we have such high rates of recidivism, the gentleman who was arrested 30 or 35 times, is that they don't have opportunities when they transition out of prison. The Bureau of Prisons does a totally inadequate job of preparing people for release. They don't have job training programs that are meant to transition people into the workforce. We need to provide people with opportunities. A lot of times crime is a symptom of lack of opportunity. And so as we looked at criminal justice reforms and things like the NEAR Act, things like Ban the Box, which was passed a few years ago, to try and give returning citizens a fair shake when they come out of the criminal justice system, we need to double down on those efforts, and we need to make sure that opportunity is secured so that people don't go back where they feel like they don't have options into a life.
Really put these on application, yield it back around. Yes or no answer? Do you guys support the decriminalization of sex work?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I need a little time for this one. I haven't made a decision.
So I don't know. Thanks.
Right.
Thank you. Mr. Grossman.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Not as currently written.
Yeah. So, this is kind of long and comprehensive, but a great again. And we'll have the pictures in my mirror. Yes or no, as I break it up, probably does what it's all about. Okay, so this is about inclusive governance. It's specifically important as it relates to wards who are currently represented. So, anti-pay policies proposed by local advocates include restricting the financial income and investments of council members from entities that are doing business with the city. Do you support banning that? Yes or no? Fund of the All right. Yeah, that's it. All right. Anti-pay policies proposed by local advocates includes restricting the financial income and investments of council members from entities that are doing business with the city government. You got that? Yeah. Also, do you support banning that practice?
I support not taking money from other people and doing my job. Is that?
Good.
Yeah.
Yes or no, John?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Even if someone ran for a big guy, absolutely.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Yelling again. Do you support abolishing constituent service funds?
No. And we need to direct our money appropriately in Ward 2. DuPont Circle especially, which makes up a third of the communities.
All right. Done. Do you support the abolition of constituent service funds?
No, I think the report.
Yes or no? Thank you. All right.
Yes, but we should reform it so we can do what they're actually supposed
Awesome.
to do.
Danny Hernandez.
Yes, I support Ross's reform.
Wonderful. Advocate.
Yes.
All right. Great. So,
Yes, that's what DC agencies are for.
awesome.
And we are out here because we like to talk, so yes or no is a little hard.
Awesome. I'll give you all the credit on the pizza for you guys. Thanks so much for putting yourself up for all. So, there were 3 questions selected from you guys out there who to that section of the program. And I'm sorry here, forgive me, the handling's kind of difficult and I already speak kind of fast and it's all slow down so we know what we're talking about. We are in the midst of a climate crisis. What will you do in your ward, in our ward, to help encourage environmental stewardship with regard to transportation, housing, and community? We'll start with Mrs. Wilson.
I think it's a great question. Climate change is an existential threat. I think we all know that. So I think, number one, we need to invest in much more sustainable transportation. We hit on this a little bit before, but if we're going to truly have a more sustainable future, we need to invest in dedicated bus lanes, protected bike lanes, and a safer infrastructure for pedestrians. So taking public transit, getting out of your car is an attractive alternative. It's a frequent and reliable alternative. I think also we need to build in our housing and other things like that closer to transit and build a more transit-friendly and smart growth approach. And finally, I think we need to make sure that we're fully implementing DC's historic clean energy law that was passed last year. Sometimes in the DC Council we pass these grand-sounding laws, but they're not real in reality. I think the council needs to focus on implementation and oversight of that law so many others. Thank you.
So I think Jordan touched on a lot of the transportation priorities. I think basically we need to figure out how do we move more people with a lower impact to the climate. Part of that is dedicated bus lanes. So buses don't spend quite as much time in traffic. You can run more often. They're a bit more reliable. I think we need Crosstown Metro service. I think we need to bring the Metro through Georgetown and across, and that whole inner loop proposal. We have to be bold. We have to have a vision. Everyone just says it's hard. Lots of things are hard. It doesn't mean you don't do it. Beyond that, pedestrian safety is absolutely a priority. We're already in Ward. Over 40% of the Ward walks to work. Most people are primarily walking. Walking is primarily what I do. I don't go to the office too much, so I don't have the Metro too much. So I get 10 seconds. But basically, we have to enable people to have a lower impact by making those options more reliable.
I think just to emphasize the topic of emissions from transportation are the #1 contributing factor to climate change, particularly in urban areas, and that's the factor that we have the most control over. I don't think that we can take to our national policymakers and say, do all these things on climate change if we're unwilling to take the steps locally to make sure that people can commute more sustainably. I think Jordan also hit on a great point with clean energy. We need to lean into that commitment, and that includes when we see things like the Pepco Exelon merger that took place a few years ago, insisting on stronger commitments to renewable energy where the regulatory authorities have the ability to influence it. The other thing I will say is I think that we need to adapt also to climate change, understanding that we're already experiencing its effects. We need to rebuild our tree canopy. We can lower, in some parts of the city, the temperature by as much as 10 degrees if they're under a mature tree canopy. And so I believe in building things out and adapting even as we look to a different future.
So this is so important. First and foremost, I believe in science. And science tells us that we got 11 years to figure this out, to reduce emissions and avoid a catastrophic future. My boy, he's going to be not even a teenager by that time. He's going to have the rest of his life to deal with our decisions. So I care about this. And I know you do too. And I know all of those people on the streets have been caring about it as well. And it is important, and I'm passionate about it. That's why I've not just been talking about it, I've been doing it. At Stead Park, a few blocks away, we've been pushing for the rec center, the new rec center there. It's going to be beautiful, to be as green a building as possible, as affordable. And I push for the buses on 16th Street to be low emission, and I will push for all of our buses to be electric, because it is actually cheaper. And I will push to allow you all to put solar panels on your roofs without less regulation. It is important. It is a priority, and I will push for it as your councilor. Thank you.
When I think about climate change, I think about the generations to come, and from an education standpoint, how can we really inform people about if they're doing this, what impact it makes? Because I think we can all agree that we want to live in a green, sustainable world. So it comes with education. With that, we need to be going into our schools, telling children what impact they're making down the line. We need to educate the adults. And for me, for the past few years, it's all about the no plastic straws, but we need to go beyond that, We need to understand the impact of what we're doing. So in terms of public transportation, we need a better public transportation system. We need to make sure our metro system is reliable. Part of the reason why I have difficulty taking WMATA is because it's not reliable. And we also need to make sure that, to get rid of all the cars, that's not something that's sustainable, because some people depend on their car for their livelihood. So we need to make sure that they realize what impact they have and what they can be doing as drivers in the city to limit the driving in Washington, D.C. Thank you.
Good recommendations, grants for solar energy on people's homes, teaching young folks in our public education system the importance of our environment, how climate change is going to damage our environment. There was just a recent article in the city paper regarding the Benning Road Pepco property on Benning Road and all the environmental cleanup that was going to take. So solar panels, stormwater runoff, all of these are good idea. Electric fleet, all our buses should be electric, and everyone should start walking like me.
Okay, so what more two city councils can you claim to have reviewed? What the council you claim to go to the Ward 2?
Well, I need longer than this.
Right.
So I've accomplished a lot. You know, I've been a 6-term ANC commissioner. I prevented the Garrison Elementary School foreclosure back in 2010. If you look at the facility, we secured $20 million for its renovation, $3.5 million for the renovation of the athletic field, the repurposing of the Franklin School, the renovation of the Franklin Park, the clean team on 14th Street, and also supporting the N Street Village, which is a nonprofit in my neighborhood. Excellent work for women of our city. I also supported bike lanes on Kent Street, the installation of the Capitol bike share station. I was once the city appointee on the Georgetown Waterfront Commission. You see that beautiful park down on Water Street. I served on So, thank you.
Thanks for the question. So I serve on the ANC2F liquor license committee, and I'm really proud of that work because it's what we do to help a lot of small businesses, new businesses get started in our area. I think a lot of the reason a lot of people want something to do is because we have a vibrant community, great funds, great places. More broadly, right before I started running, I was working for the district's Medicaid agency on a project that's going to affect 1 in 2 district residents. It's called the TC Access System. We're integrating all of the health and human services programs from across the city. That's food stamps, Medicaid, energy assistance, housing assistance. And so I think it's just important to bring stuff like that up because while we want to serve here in Ward 2, we also have to remember that we're part of the broader city. And I think in particular, we have to remember that we need to serve our lower income neighbors and our neighbors experiencing homelessness. Here in Ward 2, we probably have the highest percentage of neighbors experiencing homelessness of any ward. So to downtown Ward, we need to focus on that. We need to support them through things like this. Thank you.
So I guess my ranked soccer team on Saturday won the championship one season. So as I thought clearly, this is my first foray into running for office and getting involved in this. But I'm not someone that's been trying to do this for my entire adult life. I'm here because I felt like all the civics and the big things that I saw that were wrong, and you'll see those accomplishments going forward.
I think it's important not to be a bystander in what goes on in your communities. That motivated me to get involved in the first place. And so the very first thing I did on the commission, as I alluded to in my opening remarks, was saving a school from closure and facilitating a merger that was very difficult and that pitted 2 school communities against each other. We had very contentious meetings, but the results speak for themselves at the School Without Walls and Francis Stevens. As the ANC's chair, I came up with an agreement with GW Hospital to facilitate a helipad at GW to make literally a life or death difference to people in this city who did not have access to emergency medical care. And it's going back to things like the protected bike lane earlier. If you're not a bystander in these things, if you're focused on solutions and you're focused on compromises, you're going to inject yourself into very difficult circumstances, and you're not going to be able to please everyone, but you can't listen to everybody. You can be transparent. Half of the ANC commissioners in this board are supporting me because they know on record of being able to work together to get things done.
So everything I've always done is for my constituents, for my residents. I've got Nick Rajkumar to Nick. Nick didn't have health insurance. We used DC HealthLink to get him health insurance, realizing the benefits of President Obama's health care law. We heard from our constituents, parents in our community struggling to afford affordable child care. We said, can't we get a co-op program in Sted Park? You know what they said? They said, it is not safe enough for toddlers. So you know what we did? We said, we're going to make it safe enough for toddlers. We are going to get a new rec center at Sted Park in next year. It's going to be a beautiful rec center. That's after we fix the field already. And I already told you about the bus lanes and all the people that we helped there. We've been doing so many things. Last year, I was on the DC Public Schools Parents Cabinet, and we got new computers in every school in this city. I pushed with the coalition. Thank you very much. The Harlem School in every school in this city. You'll get all these new devices are coming in because I pushed with parents citywide. Thank you very much.
Growing up, my mother immigrated here with me when I was 3, and she didn't speak any English. And we also, at that time, was more of a working class background. She cleaned houses, she worked in a deli, and so my idea of public service has always been through volunteerism. Working with different people. From years ago, I started a nonprofit to raise awareness about HIV/AIDS among children, and this happened in China because they were given blood transfusions that were not checked. And so for me, working in this community, I found power in my ability to be a part of this political process by working for DC statehood. And we are now getting closer than ever. We have about 220 co-sponsors in the House. We have more than 30 in the Senate taking a public health approach. So one of the key things that research has shown that in order for our police officers to be able to do what they do and to be safe, and for also the individuals who are stopped and frisked to also be safe, we need to have relationships between the two. So we need to build genuine relationships with the community. People need to have trust in their police officers in order to even speak to them. Some people are just traumatized by knowing that the police officers are there, so they don't know how to act. And so I was just speaking to an amazing young lady who was talking about the police officer ride-alongs, and that's something that we can all do. We can go with our police officers to see what they're doing in the community, because we all have a responsibility to do that. But I do believe the key is to build the relationship with the community influencers, build trust first, and then enforce.
Great, so I think it's a little deeper. It's hidden discrimination, right? So you have, they know who the officers are that are arresting a lot of these young African-American kids. And I think it should be a requirement to be in law enforcement that yearly undergo a cultural competence and diversity training. Because that's how cultural change, the department doesn't change. It's this old militant way of thinking. So, and transparency. So the oversight responsibilities of the council, they need to hold the chief responsible. You know, who's making these arrests and why? The people should know. So I think a lot of that is occurring within the department, and it isn't right, and it needs to stop. Thank you.
So I appreciate that you started the question about the data showing, because that's part of the NEAR Act, right? That we need to get this data on racial disparities in stops and all sorts of things, stop and frisk. But I think it's important to take a step back and realize we have to fight to get that data. There are a lot of advocates on all different sides. So I think number one is we need to do effective enforcement and oversight of MPD and the district government more thoughtfully, because it is important. I think we did talk about this a little bit more. I mean, and better enforcement and community policing. Like we said before as well, we need to take a public health approach. And when you talk about the public health approach, isn't just disrupting violence, it's building trust and making sure that folks in the community and then law enforcement can trust each other, so we don't get to this point where we have these disproportionate stops. The last thing I want to say is just to broaden a little bit. I really admire what Council Member Kenny McDuffie has proposed in the REAR Act, and that's to say we need to consider racial equity in every community in district government. I think it's a great idea, and I think it should apply to BPD, and I think we should apply to government. Thank you.
Hey, I'm Brad. I've got personal experience here as well. I think In addition to that, my grandpa's a retired police officer, my stepdad's a retired police officer, uncle's a retired police officer, mom works at the police department. I think I, in particular, can serve as a credible critic, ally, and partner in oversight, in making sure that we do perform our policing approach here in the district. Police officers should be a part of the community. They should be on foot patrols as part of the community. Residents should be able to just go up and talk to them and have a friendly conversation. That's something that we struggle with. Part of this is the data collection, part of this is the actual oversight. There's a lot here that we need to do that, again, feels very personal to me. Can't talk about it all in just a minute, but let's see what happens.
Last one, issue with the system. So, Zach Evans has been with for quite some time. And one that get re-elected so he's ended up doing something right. What's one thing Zach Evans has done as councilman? You think everything is going
Thank you. This is I'll tell you, he did very well for himself. And the people of this city voted for term limits. And you know what the DC Council did? They overturned the will of the people.
Yes, they did.
Yes, they did. And you know who led that charge? Council member Jack Evans. I believe I was the first person on this stage, I believe the only person on this stage to pledge to adhere to term limits, because I think it is important. I think we need turnover, and I think we need to fight the old politics of this city, and that's why I'm leading by example.
That is a great question. I will say that one thing that I liked that he did was he overfunded Events DC, which it had a surplus slush fund, and I will give a shout out to the Washington Legal Clinic for the homeless. It took that slush fund and was able to move a significant amount of money to the rejuvenation of affordable housing and to provide the accurate resources, the appropriate resources for our homeless. So I thank him for inappropriately putting enough money in Events DC so that we could move it somewhere else.
So I'd say, so you're only as good as the people you have working with you, right? So I think he had an excellent constituent service staff, working for a lot of years. You call a council member's office, you want the phone, you call the intern, you call trash hasn't been picked up. So I will take it to the next level, right? Because that's what I've been doing for several decades. And I think that is a key function in a city council office, that you have individuals that are working for you that know how to navigate the DC government and get things done. So I think I want to recognize his constituent service staff, and mine will be just as good.
So one thing I will say that I admire about Jack is that he is a big supporter of the arts. So to answer the question, I do think that's something that I would like to pursue. But look, I do think this campaign is about making a clean break from Jack Evans and his corrupt machine. That is what it is about. I think, I have deep experience in government. I've worked in all three branches of the federal government. I've worked in the DC government. But I am in no way connected to Jack Evans. And that's something I'm very proud of.
I think Jack has told his story to a lot of people pretty well. He's had a lot of really good things that he's done. He's done, in 28 years. We would hope he's done a good thing for the research he has. That's what we do. But that's not enough when we're going to get you. We need someone to be aggressive and have energy to drive positive change for all of us.
So I would actually echo what John said. Jack has traditionally had great staff members. They've been with him for a long time. They know the board very well, and I've personally found them to be very responsive on constituent needs. Jack has also been a long-time ally of the LGBTQ community. He was the very first council member to come out and support gay marriage. He tried to get SODOMY, that was one of his first legislative initiatives. He was actually trying to get SODOMY repealed to the council. He has been a consistent ally of the LGBTQ community. He's been responsive to them over the years. That's important for us to carry forward, even as the issues might have changed. That's an important constituency in this board, and I think it's important to keep the interests of that constituency close to the heart for whoever takes this forward.
Lightning round that okay, so these are yes or no questions, or sure. Let's start with you. What's your favorite place to eat in Ward 2?
That's really difficult, but I have to say Sacrificial Lamb. Please, everyone go there and support Omar. They have the greatest food. I'm pretty sure they put a lot of sugar in the food, but it's delicious. Sorry.
DuPont Italian Kitchen.
So for dinner, Rosemary's Thyme, but for dessert, definitely buttercream bake shop. You got it.
So I'm probably not the best for snacks, but you'll find me most often at McDonald's and Popeyes. I've run into a lot of you at McDonald's and 17th. I'll leave it at that.
I'll join the 17th Street course, Florida.
Our constituents at Bua Thai, we will take them 3 times in one week at 17th and
What mode of transportation do you use to get to work?
That's a mix. When I'm downtown DC, I walk, and then when I go out of town, sometimes I have to go to places like Baltimore, like Manassas. So I either try to take the train or I take my car, so it really depends. But I mostly walk in the city. Oh, I'm so sorry. I forgot the directions.
How do you work?
I walk or ride a bike.
All right.
Walk, bike, or metro.
Yeah, walk by your head.
I might do the metro.
I bike downhill and then I e-bike uphill.
Okay, so this is not a serious question. I'll give you some leeway, but this will be pretty straightforward. As we get close to the primary today, would you consider withdrawing from the race and endorsing Trump a challenge in Diane that you run?
For the record, as it was printed, we had another candidate and I have had that conversation. And I'm hoping that they'll drop out and support me. So we'll see where this all goes.
So that's enough.
Well, I won't rule it out. How does that sound?
Sounds like you're right. Mr. Wilson,
I don't think we should be digging backroom deals. I think we're tired of the
we're in the front. And the question is, if you're letting that not get reelected, we should get out of the race to support someone else.
My number one goal is being back.
Thank you.
I'll actually answer the question. There's a couple people that I'd like to support, so I'll give it back.
The number one priority needs to be getting him out of office, so yes, I would consider it if it came down to it. We need to get him out of office.
Well, we need someone who can represent the whole ward. I'm the only person on this stage who's been elected on both sides of Ward 2. I've been elected in Jack Evans' backyard. I can beat Jack Evans in Georgetown. I can beat Jack Evans in Georgetown. I can beat Jack Evans across the board. Thank you.
Number one priority is to get Jack out of office. We should also use this as a time to consider ranked choice voting in the future. And for those of you who
one more time. Don't look at the get out of work Thursday. If you win, what's your walk-on song, John Kennedy?
So this is my life's calling, right? I've been working in the ward.
You hear one song, though, you listening? If you win, this is the lightning round. If you win, all right, what is your walk-on song?
My walk-on song. Oh, I have a few of them, right? Is it on there?
Don't stop, please.
Toolbox changes.
That's good. Living a prayer.
Same song when we walked into a wedding, bittersweet symphony.
Well, I can't really follow that. Katy Perry, Roar, is that the song?
Alright, thanks so much for coming out. Really appreciate it. Now we're going to closing. You guys all have 2 minutes. And I'll start with you.
Thank you so much. I know the other candidates have had to go first, so it's my time, right? So I want to first of all thank all of the organizers, also our host tonight, WNTC, and our great moderator, Delvan. And I also want to thank sharing the stage with all of the candidates here. And particularly, I want to thank my campaign team and all my friends who have come out today to support me and also what we're fighting for today, which is a transparent and not corrupt government, and that people have a say. We want to put the power back in the people. And so, Ward 2, I alluded to this earlier, we're very diverse, and I think we have a unique opportunity right now to make sure that diversity shines through. We have a unique opportunity to revision what our ward will look like, and that we all have a say in this making of a vision. And so I do want to end by also saying that there are a number of groups here tonight that I am particularly in love with the WNTC. I do want to tell Nucci she will ask me to join WNTC, and I'm making a commitment to join. I've been to many of their wonderful events. She also told me men can join. And I do, and I do also want to give a shout out to women in politics. You know, yes, that's right, Nina. I greatly support men, but I also think that we need more women in politics. So if you take a look at the other wards, there are some very wonderful women running, and so please give your support to them if you live in their particular wards. And so with that, thank you very much. I really look forward to meeting many of you, if not tonight, but hopefully in the future. And I want to listen to what you are experiencing, because I want to know how we can come up with a solution together in a transparent and fair way. Thank you very much. My name is Yelin Zhang. I've learned to say that slowly. Or if you can't say it, call me Zhang or call me Ellen. Thank you very much.
So, thank you everyone. I want to reiterate what Yellen said, Working Families, Gertrude Stein Democratic Club, the union, all of you work in a nonprofit work that you do for our community. So this has been my life's calling, working in public service. There's nobody up here that's done more for the residents of Ward 2 than myself, working in the mayor's office, the Office of Community Relations and Services, whether it's helping an 82-year-old senior, Miss Concepcion, who was homeless, living on the steps of a vacant basement and securing her housing. if it was somebody that was misplaced because of a fire, me picking up the phone and calling a local hotel in the neighborhood that picked them, put them up for 6 months. I know how to navigate the government. I know how to get things done. And one of the first things that I'm going to do when I'm elected the next council member of Ward 2 is I'm going to have a Ward 2 Citizen Summit at the Washington Convention Center, and it's going to be themed, what do you want for your neighborhood? And you're all invited. And so are you. So there's an old saying, we have a lot of allies in the gay community, but you know what? If one of your own isn't down there advocating on behalf of your rights, the causes that you believe in, so if you don't have a seat at the table, you become part of the menu. So I ask again for your vote. I will make you proud. I will work hard. I won't be locked in a back boardroom. You see me walk all over the ward. I will build relationships. Thank you for coming.
I just want to say thanks again to everyone for coming. Thanks in particular to my family and friends and supporters who are here. And thanks to the groups who organized this event. I've been really inspired by all the activism in our ward already in this campaign. I mentioned this before, but I think it bears repeating. I do think we're at an inflection point in our ward and in our city. I think we are at risk of becoming a place for only the wealthy to live. And I do think when you listen to Ward 2 residents, really listen to them, people don't want that to happen. I think if we work together, we can make choices right now in this election to make it more progressive and equitable and inclusive city. So let's fully fund Birth to 3 for all DC so that no family pays more than 10% of their income on childcare just so they can have a place for their child to learn. Let's put some of the strongest housing protections in the nation to work, actually making a difference in people's day-to-day lives. Whether you're a homeowner, whether you're a renter, or whether you're experiencing homelessness. Let's truly take action to make it easier to walk and bike and take transit and build a more sustainable future. And let's take action to lead the nation on easing the burden of student loan debt so that our young residents can stay in this community that they love, buy homes, and start families. And I think most importantly, let's make sure the DC Council is listening to all of us, not just the lobbyists and the insiders who can cut the biggest strikes. I do think right now in Ward 2, we have a unique opportunity to send an unmistakable message that we will not stand for shameless corruption and a council member who stands in the face stands before progress time and again. I think it's time for a clean break from Jack Evans and his machine. And I think it's time for a council member who's for you and not for sale. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming out this evening, taking a couple hours and just listen to us. Particularly those struggling with the small group who are obviously been very happy this evening. I've been there, taking my kids canvassing, they'll tolerate it for a little bit, but then, start fighting and start in relation to that, I want you to know I make it a priority to be accessible and part of the community. Every weekend, you can find me at Sedfield playing soccer, or almost every weekend, or at Garrison Elementary playing. You'll see me canvassing through the neighborhood quite a bit. You'll see me at McDonald's, so we have our eyes a little bit. Feel free to come up and chat. If you have any questions, if you want to talk, I'm here for that. Councilperson is a member of the community. You're not someone special, you're not someone different. We're all here the same way. We all put our pants or shirts or whatever you decide to wear today. If we would all wear the same thing, we all put it on the same way. Really as we look forward, I want to reiterate, I think I have the best personal experience as we talk about all these challenges that we need to address in the city. I've not done well, and I've done well. I know what it's like to walk. I know what it's like to bike. I grew up driving. I'm familiar with the breadth of challenges that we as a community face. Thank you all. I'm Dan Hernandez. Hope to see you all out there. If you voted in the last couple primaries, we'll definitely keep it your door canvassing, or you may have seen it voting from me already, or I thought you already. Have a good evening.
Well, thank you very much. And again, I want to echo the fellow candidates, thanking both our moderator as well as all of the groups that came together to organize this, and thanking everybody for coming out this evening. I moved to the district 10 years ago, like a lot of people come to this city because of an interest in public service, an interest in national public service. I very quickly found my calling locally and became involved in my community as a student at GW, fighting to make sure that students had a seat at the table when discussions were going on in our community. And I've continued over the last 7 years to bring people together around the very difficult issues that we've confronted on the community level, and at the same time trying to have an impact on these broader policies that we know are going to be challenges for 10, 20, 30 years into the future. I love serving my community. I was just out dealing with Pepco at midnight the other night on the street. Even that element of the job I enjoy because it's about people and the impact that you can have on people's lives. And on the council especially, having a macro impact on people's lives as we look at the challenges of affordable housing, safe and sustainable transportation, strong neighborhood schools, making sure that our small businesses are supported, and making sure that our LGBTQ community is at the table. As John mentioned, it's incredibly important. There's an assumption because we have marriage equality and a lot of these issues are no longer before. They are still very much with us. When trans women of color have a 45% unemployment rate and an economy that's about as good as it will ever be, then we have failed a substantial portion of our population. So the next council member is not only be able to represent the interests of their constituents in this ward, understand the sensibilities of this ward, the nuances of policy. They need to have a moral compass about the entire city as a whole. We raise 60% of the tax revenue in the city in this ward. It's about time we distribute it equitably, and we need a council member who will fight for that. And it's on that basis that I hope to have your support, and eventually next June, your vote. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. My name is Kishan Mutta. Our campaign website is kishanfordc.com. And my wife is sitting right there taking pictures. She's great. A minute about our families. My mom and dad were born in villages in India without any electricity. And they came to this country. Divya's father was a refugee from Burma who had to flee war. They came to this country, and this country gave them a chance. They taught us to give back. I've been Divya's a career civil servant. She's a Girl Scout troop leader. We want to serve. And it's in that spirit. That is why I ran for ANC in 2012. That's why I served through DC Helpline. That's why I ran again in 2018 in our new neighborhood. And that's why I've been fighting for my constituents, like Sarah and Brian, and their son Mason, who just wants to play ball across the street. And Jack Evans does not want to let them do that, and that is why we are fighting against the old politics, the backroom deals of this city. We're not going to stand for it anymore. I will not stand for it anymore. He's turned his back on his constituents, and that is the worst thing he has done. And I will fight every day for them and all of you if you give me the chance on the council. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, our program, please join me once again give wonderful hands and hands. Thank you.